Immediately after the death of Emperor Palpatine at the Battle of Endor, Imperial Warlords began carving up the Empire and taking whatever territory they controlled for themselves. Some of these warlord states and breakaway kingdoms shared borders and had good relations with one another, while others were pretty hostile. This video will cover some of the major Imperial Warlords in the Post-Endor period and their relations with one another, be it peaceful neutrality, alliances, adversaries or rivals, as well as cases of open warfare. Grand Admiral Joseph Grunger was the first Imperial Warlord to carve out his own territory after Palpatine's death and became immediate enemies with Grand Admiral Milton Tackle due to taking Gargan and the Empire when it was under the leadership of Ysani Isard because Tackle went whining to her after he lost his fleet to Grunger. Grunger was also at war with the Central Committee of Moffs and with their puppet Trioculus, as Grunger had a larger fleet, yet the delusional Trioculus made demands that he submit and bow down before him. Grunger eventually had an extremely loose alliance with Trioculus and the Central Committee after Trioculus acquired the glove of Darth Vader, but soon left after Trioculus died like an idiot. Grunger was also at war with Grand Admiral Pitta as both attempted to conquer the Corellian system. Grunger would end up killing both of them by ramming his Super Star Destroyer into Pitta's torpedo sphere. Imperial Director of Intelligence Ysani Isard came to power by manipulating the Imperial Ruling Council and controlled what was left of the Galactic Empire after Palpatine's death. After claiming power, she became an immediate adversary with Trioculus and the Central Committee of Moffs, who tried to challenge her claim over their own. Although there was no direct conflict between the two, they were hardcore rivals. Isard's empire also apparently was at war with Zinge, or at least had some hostile relations with him, which I'll pick up on when I talk about Fatboy Zinge later on. Additionally, several members of Isard's ruling council began to openly suggest that they start recruiting warlords such as Blitzer Harsk and Truton Teradok to defend their holdings rather than rely on commanders who were potentially loyal to Grand Vizier Pestage, who Isard had manipulated to look weak and treacherous before overthrowing him. One of Isard's highest-ranking military allies was Grand Admiral Afshin Makati, who was pretty much the only Grand Admiral to remain loyal to the Galactic Empire throughout the Post-Endor era. Makati was also just pretty much bent on a revenge arc against Darksider Kadan, who he had previously scarred him for making fun of his purple sparkly clothes. In addition to Makati, after losing his home sector, Tackle attached his banner to Director Ysani Isard's empire and attempted to retake his former holdings from Joseph Grunger. However, Grunger's immense armada caused the campaign to end in a massive failure. After Isard threatened to execute Tackle for this defeat, the Grand Admiral decided to barter his allegiance to others and making their own bids for the throne, which led him to the Central Committee of Moffs and Trioculus. Tackle and Trioculus initially had a good relationship, as Tackle was a big-time drug addict and you'd have to ingest a ton of spice to be around Trioculus without wanting to die, because Trioculus was just that stupid, delusional, and unstable. Tackle mainly backed Trioculus because Trioculus was at war with Grunger and told Tackle that he would destroy the Grand Admiral's forces for him. However, Trioculus would never destroy Grunger, as Grunger was just built different. Now, turning to Trioculus' relations with other warlords, this guy was just such a flipping dummy and was likely dropped on his head several hundred times as a small child just because of how stupid he was. First, Trioculus expected all of the other Imperial warlords, and just Imperials in general, to follow him just because he claimed, without evidence, that he was the son of Palpatine, which of course he was not, and he also expected to gain Force abilities just from putting on Darth Vader's glove, which he did not get. Anyway, he was just a puppet of the Central Committee of Moffs, who had a rivalry with Ysani Isard's claims as heir to the Empire, as she controlled the ruling council. This guy had just a few allies, and those he did ally with, he generally killed or treated like crap. No wonder this moron didn't last long. Okay, I'm rambling now. I just get really worked up when talking about how clearly mentally ill Trioculus was. But something else to note is that Trioculus was allied with a Kadan impersonator, which absolutely triggered Makati, who remained bent on his revenge arc against Kadan, even if it's a Kadan impersonator. Turning to the warlord Zinge, he was an early aggressive warlord and carved out a large chunk of the galaxy, possibly because of his large appetite. Anyway, Zinge was at war with the Greater Maldruid led by Truton Teradok, as the two factions had many border skirmishes. Zinge was also apparently belligerent towards the Galactic Empire under the rule of Ysani Isard, as he considered it to be treasonous for anyone in his empire or allied with his empire to have communications with Isard's empire, or anyone within it. Eternal Screed had carved out his small empire and allied himself with Zinge, but Screed was executed by the Fat Warlord once Zinge found out that Screed had been in contact with Captain Pelion, who was loyal to what was left of the fracturing empire under Isard at the time. and Zinge had considered that to be treason and had Screed killed. After Zinge's fall in 8 ABY, the Greater Maldruid extended much of its resources, conquering territory within the Mid-Rim while fighting against both the Galactic Empire led by Isard and the New Republic during the post-Zinge campaign of 8.5 ABY, as it was a three-way war between each faction trying to take as much of Zinge's territory as they possibly could. Truton Pterodoc called up his brother Kosh Pterodoc, who had his own empire in the Deep Core, for help. Kosh's empire and the Maldruid then combined their forces to form the Federated Pterodoc Union and conquered their way towards one another. The brothers essentially had no allies besides one another and were constantly either at war with or allied with Blitzer Harsk. Artus Cain was one of the most successful warlords in the diplomatic realm, as his empire avoided major conflict against both other Imperial Warlords and the New Republic, as his faction remained relatively neutral and focused on trade. His empire even helped fund former Imperial Inquisitor Jarek's search for the expedition to the Valley of the Jedi. Cain committed some forces to the Thrawn campaign in support of the Empire, but he pretty much just stayed out of it. However, Cain did join the Dark Empire to take part in Operation Shadowhand when the reborn Emperor Palpatine brought Imperial Warlords into the Deep Core. An alliance which Cain made was with Grand Admiral Octavian Grant, who was mostly just chilling out to avoid Imperial rivals until he defected to the New Republic, which would prove disastrous for Cain. Artus Cain was killed during the pre-Shadowhand campaign over the planet Palani, where his shuttle was ambushed and destroyed by several New Republic E-Wings. Cain had been drawn out by Grant, who had told Cain that he wanted to rejoin the alignment, and Cain was ambushed by the New Republic. However, despite his death, the alignment was victorious in their campaign on Palani. Grand Admiral Thrawn's return brought many warlords together. However, most of the Deep Core Imperial warlords and named characters like Sandor Del Vardis, the Pterodoc brothers, Harsk, and others remained independent of the Thrawn campaign. Essentially, only the Imperial Ruling Council and official Galactic Empire threw in with Thrawn. As I previously stated, Artus Cain sent a few ships, but overall Thrawn mainly just gained forces from the legitimate Empire. Reunification under the Dark Empire was more successful, as pretty much every Imperial Warlord was recalled to the Deep Core and joined Palpatine, but the Dark Empire failed to defeat the New Republic in Operation Shadowhand, and Palpatine had been betrayed by Imperial Royal Guard Karnor Jax, who sabotaged Palpatine's clone bodies and came to control most of the Galactic Empire, rebranding it as the Crimson Empire. However, Jax's Crimson Empire lost the other Imperial Warlords, and only the Imperial Ruling Council backed Jax, and it was referred to as the Council of Blood by former Imperial Royal Guard Kir Kanos for the betrayal of Palpatine. Anyway, the Crimson Empire was formed from the corpse of the Dark Empire, and after Jax was killed in his reign over the Empire was given up to the Ruling Council, which was run mostly by idiots and one fat guy who was under the influence of a Yuzang Vong agent. But the refracturing of the Imperial Warlords occurred after the Dark Empire fell, and especially during the reign of the Crimson Empire. Warlords Blitzer Harsk and the Pterodoc brothers were at war once again after the fall of the Dark Empire, and Truton Pterodoc launched the Battle of Harsk's Fortress. Pterodoc defeated and humiliated Blitzer Harsk, who decided to do the same to Pterodoc. The Battle of Harsk's Fortress was followed by the Battle of Pterodoc's Fortress, where Harsk hastily committed an impulsive attack which was poorly planned and executed. Dala, who was an admiral serving under Harsk at the time, turned on the warlord and demanded that everyone cease fire, and with the help of Captain Pelion, who was serving under Pterodoc, she got most of the powerful warlords to meet at Toss Beacon. Once at Toss Beacon, Dala grew tired of all the warlords bickering and squabbling, so she killed them all and assumed control over the united warlord fleet. Dala had control over every warlord's previous holdings except for the Federated Pterodoc Union, as she had killed Truton Pterodoc at Toss Beacon, but Kosh Pterodoc remained in command of his holdings. She led the United Imperial Remnant faction until stepping down after a few disastrous campaigns and placed Pelion in command of the Remnant. Under Pelion, the Imperial Remnant remained intact and did not refracture. The Federated Pterodoc Union, however, remained outside of the Remnant, and Kosh Pterodoc was eventually assassinated by the New Republic, making Pelion and the Imperial Remnant the only remaining Imperial faction, which he led until his death in the Second Galactic Civil War. Did you know about the different warlord relations after the Battle of Endor? Are there any other inter-warlord conflicts or alliances that I left out? What other Star Wars Legends content would you like for me to cover? Write in the comments, and thank you for watching.